Okay, so we're starting to see more fractures and more narrative breaches show up in the Westview universe, and I love it. I think it's great. In this video, I want to talk about three things that I find interesting. The first one is our continuing evolving discussion of Vision's role in all of this, right? Because I still think Vision is the key for our understanding of exactly what's going on. Secondly, I want to talk about just how much control does Wanda actually have here. And thirdly, I want to discuss the twins a little bit. I'm not 100% sure they are who we think they are. Okay, so from the beginning of these videos, right, going back to even our pre-watch ones, we've always placed emphasis on Vision's role in all of this as a key figure in understanding the totality of what's happening in this Westview world. We've been quietly waiting to see what Vision was going to do if he ever actually found out what was going on around him. And I think it isn't until this fifth episode, I think it wasn't actually ever clear if he ever really could find out what was going on, right? Because we've seen the timeline in Westview be reversed and essentially wipe out what Vision was just talking about or had just learned. Additionally, Vision in this episode starts to exhibit signs of his former self, right? That the self that was in Civil War, that was able to use data to figure out probabilities of what's going on around him. We see that here, and I particularly enjoyed the line when he's at Wanda's feet, where he says, I'm ignoring all statistics and probabilities here to believe you. I loved that line because it reveals to us that the analytical side of Vision is here, or at least the potential for it is here, which means he should be able to piece together everything that's happening around him. Additionally, we have his interaction with Norm, which was fascinating, right? We learn that Vision is able to tap into the real consciousness of the people around him. So it shouldn't be too long before Vision starts to tap into others and put all of this together. I think the next person would probably be Herb. Agnes is a bit of a different character for me. Agnes started breaking the fourth wall quite a bit in this episode, or at least in two places. One is with the babies, the twins and their babies, and secondly is with the dog. Now, the dog is an interesting figure as well, which I'll get to in a second when we talk about Wanda. But Vision is now, we learn actually quite a bit of information from his interaction with Norm. We learn again that he's able to tap into others, but we also learn that Vision believes that he should be able to tap into himself, and yet he can't. He grows frustrated by the idea that he knows he has a past, but he can't access it. And I find that to be really intriguing on just a psychological level, that he knows there's a past there, but he can't see it. I like that. I think that that's interesting. Now, what does this tell us about Vision moving forward? Well, it tells us that he's aware of what's happening around him, that it's strange and at the same time wrong. And it sort of leads us to wonder how far Vision is willing to go here to correct the wrong that he sees. Now, the series all along has been carefully moving us toward the conclusion that Wanda is responsible for everything. In fact, Captain Rambo even says it, flat out. They walk it back a little bit, right? Captain Rambo walks it back a little bit to give us some space to think about the possibilities of other things, but it has been leading us that way all along, and there's still, a lot more that points us to that truth than anything else. But we're starting to see those narrative breaches show up, and the more they show up, the more we see that there is definitely a possibility that Wanda is not responsible for everything necessarily. What I found interesting were three key moments here in that discussion. One is the guest, of course, who shows up at the end, right? She seems genuinely surprised by who's there and how he looks, and she seems like she had nothing to do with the creation of that guest. Secondly, I found interesting the dog. The dog is able to act of its own free will, and again, Wanda seems disturbed by the end result, what happens to the dog there. And Agnes does as well, which I think Agnes is an interesting character now. But the third part that I found to be more disturbing or more important for us at least in our discussion is when Vision tells her, I have to believe that what's happening here is occurring on a subconscious level, right? He's introducing the idea that he needs to believe that she's not making this horrible thing happen knowingly or 100% knowingly. The problem with that, of course, is the moment that Vision introduces the idea that things are happening on a subconscious level is also the moment that he takes away that possibility that it's happening on a subconscious level. What I mean by that is when you move something from the subconscious to the forefront here of your mind, the conscious area, you can definitely make the argument that the decisions that are made after that should be coming from the conscious level of your thinking. So I think Vision removes for us here in this episode the possibility that all of this is happening through Wanda, through her subconsciousness. Now, it doesn't mean that she's not responsible for all of this, right? And it doesn't mean that someone else can't be still pulling the strings and being responsible. In fact, my suspicion is that we have multiple truths here swirling around and commingling. Wanda can be responsible for what is happening, but not necessarily responsible for why it's happening. I just found it interesting that Vision removes the element that it's happening through Wanda, through her subconscious. And that brings me to the twins. You know, I could be alone here, but I actually find the twins to be pretty creepy. Let me know in the comments below. Am I alone in this, or does anybody else find the twins to have kind of a Twilight Zone creepiness? I'm not even sure if we're supposed to or not, to be honest with you. It could just be that they're, they're kids, and they're not the best actors in the world, but, they're cute kids, but I just find them creepy. Creepy Twilight Zone-y kids. Maybe it's just me. The twins are particularly intriguing because everyone else in Westview, right? WandaVision, Herb, Agnes, Norm, all of them, they're able to seamlessly transition into the next media stages, right? 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, etc. The twins, however, certainly have enough agency. They might have the most agency of anyone outside of Wanda herself in this Westview world, because they're able to make the conscious decision to grow up. And that means that they're capable of writing story here. They're capable of narrative construction. And narrative construction is the power in this world. Being able to create story and change events. That's the power here. So the reason why I question if they are who we think they are, and of course in the comics Wanda has twins, Tommy and Billy, is because of that power structure here. Because they're able to create narratives so easily without even consulting Wanda or almost in spite of Wanda. I do wonder if eventually we're going to end up with a situation where they grow more powerful than Wanda, and we have a kind of triangle here at the end, right? With Wanda in one corner, Vision in the other, and the twins at the final point of the triangle. And this may be too early, or this may be ridiculous for me to think, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that the twins end up being kind of antagonists here. I don't know. Anytime you give individuals supreme power, there's always the question of how it's going to affect them and what it's going to do to them. So I do think it's at least a possibility that the twins could become more powerful than Wanda in Westview, and they could end up becoming a source of antagonism here. And that brings us back to Vision. What is Vision going to do about all of this? I don't know. But I'm still loving the series, and I enjoyed the opening sequence for this episode quite a bit. I caught a few 80s sitcoms references, right? I got Family Ties, of course, Growing Pains, Full House, and I thought the house itself that they lived in reminded me more of Valerie's Family or the Hogan Family, that show. If there were some others that I missed, let me know. I'm curious, what else I missed there. But those were the four that I got the most of. So I really enjoyed it. And I'm curious to see where this goes still. I'm unconvinced that it's all Wanda. I have my suspicions, but we'll see.